Hello, beautiful. You are listening to episode 83 of the Africana Woman podcast. Chulu is my name. I am a writer, self-branding coach, entrepreneur, and mentor. This show is the home of African women's stories. We share ideas, triumphs, challenges, and lessons from our perspective as women. Our library is a step to cementing our place in history. Her story, your story, is powerful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to all the new listeners and welcome back to the Africana Woman family, the visionaries. Yes. Please click the subscribe button and visit africanawoman.com to become an official Africana Woman visionary. We are 16 conversations away from 100 episodes on the Africana Woman podcast. For the 100th episode, we will have a live podcast recording with a live audience right here at Kumushi Garden in Kabwe. If you want to be one of the 100 guests, please go to the show notes and sign up. Listen, it's gonna be lit. If you want to be a sponsor for this event, I'm not gonna say no. Honey, please get in touch. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you're not in Zambia, I still want you to participate. You can send us a voice note on our hotline, or if you have a burning follow-up question for a previous guest, send those through as well, and we will answer them at the celebration. The 100th episode is coming up, guys. All roads lead to Kabwe on September 24th. See you there. I can't wait. Okay, so here's another quick reminder. The first ever Africana Woman Visionaries Retreat is on 29 to 31 July. We are curating a very intimate experience at an exclusive property called The Castle on the shores of Lake Kariba. Guys, I mean, the setting alone is just divine. If you want to find out more, you can find the link in the show notes as well. Guys, my sister, hey, Chideke, the world is raving about blood sisters. If you do not know anything about it, how are we friends? Hello, huh? Go and watch Blood Sisters. Okay, fine. Let me explain for people who have no idea what I'm talking about. How? I don't even understand. But anyway, Blood Sisters is a mini-series made by the amazing Mo Abudu. Guys, this woman is goals. And the storyline is a thriller located in Niger. So that was chulo, just clicking through Netflix and it pops up like, oh, a new arrival. And I'm like, okay, let me check it out. Hey, first 10 minutes, hold up, what just happened? I went to WhatsApp and I said, you know what? Somebody needs to watch this with me. It's like somebody needs to jump on this with me. Because if you haven't already noticed, I get very emotionally involved in movies, hey? So I don't want to bear that burden by myself. Oh my gosh. So I managed to rope my mom to watch with me. Actually, every other person who was watching it after I had watched it, I was like, listen, I just want you to give me like a running commentary. That's all I need. It's the first 10 minutes. It's crazy. Oh my goodness. So when I did finish watching it, I said to my sisters, I was like, guys, this was insane, like insane. And then one of them says to me, she says, oh, it was written by a Zambian lady. I was like, serious? How? Hey, I went straight onto the internet, investigated who was this woman. And then I went straight to her inbox. I'm telling you, this is like in 10 minutes. Went straight to her inbox and I was like, hi sis, you need to come and explain yourself. On a serious note, she said yes. She said yes. You guys, I was geeking out. I am still geeking out. And I'm so excited to share this conversation. Please welcome Zelipa Zulu to the Africana Woman podcast. Zelipa Zulu is a screenwriter, script editor, storyliner, story editor, head writer, and concept creator with 14 years experience in film and television. Zeli's first feature, Blues for Azania, 2007, led to work as a writer and storyliner on the award-winning SA TV show Generations. From 2009 to 2016, Zeli worked as a writer and storyliner on the award-winning youth-targeted drama series Rhythm City. Since 2016, she has been head writer for the show. Under Zeli's guidance, the show grew in audience ratings, share, and popularity, performing the best in its long history. Since 2012, the show has averaged over 4 million daily viewers. In the last 4 years, the show has been nominated for 13 SAFTAs, securing 5 wins, 2 of them for Best Television Soap Opera. In 2015 to 2016, Zeli created Ingozi, an advertiser-funded drama series for word-of-mouth productions. The show ran for 2 seasons on SABC1, ranking second in ratings and audience share across all SABC channels. In 2019, Zeli created her original series Omen, a 13-part supernatural drama series for Mzansi Magic and Showmax. Omen ranked in the top 4 most watched shows across the channel. Other credits include, and please, I am not from South Africa, so I might butcher these, but Mnet's The Wild, Mzansi Magic's The Road, Isibaya, Istembiso, Lockdown and Entangled, SABC's Uzalo, Mamelo, Movango, Makoti, and political drama 90 Planes.
Well done.
Thank you, I made it. I was practicing. And more recently, Zeli's Netflix debut, Blood Sisters, an original 4-part limited series co-written with Craig Fremond, produced by Nigerian Mo Abudu, Ebony Life Studios, was released on May 5th, 2022. In its first week of release, Blood Sisters hit the top 10 ratings in over 30 countries across the world. Guys, help me welcome Zelipa Zulu to the Africana Woman podcast. I'm so excited. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
I am very excited. It's so funny because I watched Blood Sisters, and as soon as I was done, I said, oh my God, guys, my group of friends, I said, this show is amazing. And my friend said, oh, it was written by a Zambian lady. And I was like, straight away, on Google, straight away, please be on the podcast. So I'm so grateful that you said yes.
It's an absolute pleasure. Anything to, uplift a fellow woman, anything, to get women in the spotlight, I'm all for it. Always.
So I always start with this question, which is, what is your favorite childhood memory?
Being on my own at home and writing a story. That's literally my favorite childhood memory. And the weird part is that it could be any day of my childhood. That's what I would be doing.
Do you have a story, for example, that you wrote in your childhood and you've somehow brought it into the work that you're doing right now?
Actually, that's a very interesting question. I don't think that I have. I don't think that I have. They say that every writer's first story is a sort of, quasi biography of themselves and their life. And I kind of feel perhaps more than what I would have written when I was young, seeping into my work, it would be more of what my life was like, seeping into my work. So in that sense, yes, there's a few of my own truths that I drew from in my early works, definitely. Okay. I'm not going to tell you which ones.
Okay, but just to give people background, like I mentioned, you're Zambian, but yes, you have a career that is beautifully illustrious, and it's been mostly in South Africa. So just give us an idea of how, the Zambian lady found herself in South Africa,
Well, I like to think that I'm a very Pan-African child. I'm a child of Africa. I was born in Zambia. I spent my formative years in Zambia. My mother was from Zimbabwe. My father was from South Africa. So it was very natural for me to make the shift in my adulthood from Lusaka, Zambia to Johannesburg, South Africa. It wasn't, a stretch. And during my childhood, my parents, well, my father in particular, moved around quite a bit. So I found myself in lots of different African countries. So yeah, child of Africa, child of the soil. That's me.
I know that you studied law, and I was just wondering how you went from law and then you went to screenwriting. What happened?
It was always screenwriting. It has always been screenwriting for me. The only reason I ventured into law was because I needed something that would appease my parents. I think this is a very common African theme, that our parents don't rate the arts. They don't rate anything creative as something that could sustain you. And they always try and do the best that they can for us, and they always want us to do better than them. And so for me, my parents considered my very undeniable talent for writing and being creative, which got me into a lot of trouble at times, as a great hobby. But I needed, according to them, to get a real job, study for something real that will put food on your table. And so I chose what I felt was the next best thing. Because anyone who knows me knows I can argue quite well. I'm not the best girlfriend or wife out there because I can argue and I always win. So when my parents died, I figured there was no one I was holding myself accountable to. And it was time to pursue what I truly felt was me, something that I was truly passionate about. And so after years of study and after years of working, well, it wasn't too long, but after years of working in corporate, I just decided I've got nothing to lose. I resigned, I packed away my degree, and I hit the road, never looked back.
Wow, a lot of women and just people in general are very fearful of just, taking that leap. And I think, you spoke about sort of being released in a sense,
yes,
to not saying that, oh, okay, these people are looking at me to be in this profession, but you had that release. But for you, what was your next step? Because, you're going into an industry that is probably very...
Oh, it was difficult.
So how do you now start to navigate that space,
It was very, very difficult. And I completely agree with you, leaving something that is most certain to provide financial stability it's not a small thing. And I think when you're young, you tend to take a lot more risks. I look back and I think, dear Lord, would I do that again today at my age? Hell no. Hell no. And I try and draw inspiration from a younger version of me, but it's very difficult. I guess when I took that step and I resigned after a few years of corporate and I took my little money, the most natural thing to do, because I come from a very political family, was my resignation from the corporate world coincided with the decline of Zimbabwe, which was, called the breadbasket of Africa. And I thought, I need to do a story on this. I don't know how to shoot a documentary, but I also don't want to do a stereotypical sort of political documentary. I'm more interested in what the people are thinking and feeling, their hopes, their fears, and what they've, gone through, something that will resonate with the next person. And so I kind of just, with the sort of surety and just ambition of youth, took my little money, my laptop, my little handheld camera, and I flew to Harare. And I kind of retraced my steps, like where my mom was from, and just sort of touch base with long lost relatives and ask questions. And I just went with my gut. I drafted a little script, and pretty soon I found that story was an animal. It doesn't always follow script. It evolves in an organic way. And I just followed instinct, and I packaged together a little something, and I went back to South Africa and knocked on about 5,011 doors, and only one opened, but I only needed that one. It was difficult. It was difficult for sure. And half the time I didn't know what I was doing.
So you use Blues for Azania as a sort of like a portfolio, right?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So, because I was looking for some sort of, I wanted to see what it was, like a trailer or something like that. Is it available anywhere?
I have a copy. It was broadcast on the SABC, years back. I don't know that I suppose you could find it on YouTube, but I'm not sure. But I do have a copy. I could send it to you. Mm. It's very shocking. I look at it and I go, ooh, I cringe. Because, with experience, you kind of go, I can't believe I put that out there for public consumption. It's but the heart shines through. The heart shines through.
Yeah. So when you were knocking on the doors, were you saying that I want to come in as a writer? And did you go in as a writer, or maybe you entered in something else?
I was extremely ambitious. I went in as I am a writer, and this is what I have to offer. This is my calling card, if you will, and I want a producer. That's how I went in. I didn't want to go in as some junior person. I was very confident in my abilities and my skill. Rightly so, wrongly so, I don't know. But I was very confident. And I went in saying I want a producer. And when I went to MMSV, Mfundi said to me, you have great potential and you have a great knack for, people and how they actually do people things. And I can see something in you, but you're still very green. I do like your project, but not in its entirety. And if you let me come on board as a co-creator, co-writer, then I can help you. And so I had to swallow my pride, the hubris of youth, and say, okay, let me learn from one of the greatest, one of, the pioneers of TV in not just South Africa, but Africa as a whole. And I quickly realized what a sort of, privileged position that I was in at the time. And I swallowed my pride and I took a back seat and I learned. So, that's how that came about. And when we were done with Blues for Azania, he offered me a position as a junior writer on Generations. And that was me thinking I've done this massive thing. You and I were partners. So I'm going on to something bigger. And he was like, no, that's not how it works. You've got to start from the beginning. And pretty much that's how I started writing. That's how I started writing for South African television.
Wow. I think, when you're saying that, you're switching careers and just the thought of having to start at the bottom again and then work your way up, that is also scary in itself. Yes. But like you said, you learned at the hands of somebody who is a master already. And that was an amazing experience. Out of curiosity, do you speak the local languages?
Yes.
I see. How many?
I understand quite a few, but I speak one quite well. Okay. I speak Zulu quite well.
I see. Because I was thinking because I know South African shows and they're very particular about using the local languages and making sure that they're representing the people on the streets, and it's not just
Yes.
English through and through.
Yes.
We love them in Zambia. We're going to read the subtitles.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's something that I absolutely think every country can learn from. We need to take pride in who we are. We need to represent accurately on the screen back to our people who they are. And if we're making television in South Africa, why must it be predominantly English? Why aren't we using our local languages? And South Africa does that beautifully. And I think we can also learn in other countries to do the very same. So yes, I speak Zulu. The other sort of, local dialects, I understand, but I'm not very fluent. But I'm very immersed in the culture. I'm very immersed in the way of life. I mean, I've been in South Africa for a very long time. So I am at heart, I am South African. I am Zambian. And now I'm making a home in the UK. So, yeah.
So in a team of writers, when you have like a show like Generations, who is in that team? What is it comprised of? Like the writing team?
Right. So the writing team would normally comprise of the head writer, who's the HOD, and then you have a story editor who will look at all three aspects of the story, A, B, and C line, and meld them together, make them speak to each other, and follows the continuity of the emotional continuity of the characters and also just general continuity of the episodes. So you have the head writer, you have the story editor, you have the storyliners who helm a storyline each. And then you have the script writers who then take the storylines and bring those to life in the form of a script. And then you have the script editor. And then from the script editor, you have the translator and then the script coordinator. So there's quite a few people and quite a few processes that go into an episode before it actually goes to production and then finally makes it onto screen to the viewer.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like you really have to embrace working with people,
Yes.
Yeah, if you're like so focused on just, my story should just be the story, then I think you'd struggle a bit.
Doesn't work like that. I mean, writing is one of the most solitary passions one could ever try and pursue. But also it's a very inclusive process because you can't write in a vacuum. And yet you can. But ultimately, when you're producing an episode, there is no room for ego. You cannot have an ego. And to produce a great show, you've got to be a team player. Because even myself, as the head writer of a show, with people reporting to me, with me having the last say on what goes on the page, I need to be able to take it when my team says to me, that's a rubbish idea. I cannot take it personal. And so when I have the opportunity to get somebody new onto the team, the first thing I say to them is leave your ego at the door, because if you have an ego, it's not going to work in this room.
So is it
a very collaborative effort?
Yeah. I'm just wondering about like logistically, is it possible to work remotely?
Yes, absolutely. Before COVID, we only met as a team once a week. The rest was done remotely. And then we would meet once every 4 months to, workshop the bigger picture. So we would spend 3 whole days together, the game farm somewhere, during the week, once a week, for about 4 hours. And then off you go.
Oh, wow. I like that. I like that a lot.
It sounds great until you're actually doing the work and you're like, I could use some help here.
But I mean, as much as you're working remotely, but you're still in contact with each other.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Throughout. I constantly, even like right now, I'm constantly, as you can see, As I work, I bounce off of, my team, or I bounce off of my colleague, and I'll just be like, oh, I'm thinking this happens. And he's like, oh, that sounds dodge. Why do you want that? I explain, he gets it, he makes a better suggestion, and, vice versa. And I'm on call for the rest of the team to sort of say, I'm stuck. And then I have to pick up the phone and, help out.
Yeah. So I was wondering around, I think when you have a show as long as Rhythm City or, Generations or any of these shows, how do you keep it relevant? How do you stay on beat with the community, with, what's happening in the culture? Where are your muses from?
You just said it. Like, you stay, immersed and up to speed with what's happening in the community around you. You can't, for example, are you in Lusaka?
Yeah, I'm in Kabwe.
Are you in Kabwe? So, okay, I'm just going to use Lusaka for reference because I'm not very familiar with, towns in Kabwe. But if you're going to write a show that speaks to the country at large, you can't just block yourself off in Kablonga and, that's it. That's your domain. And the only place that you go to is Chicago, or what's the other one? Capone, Capone's. You've got to go time to time, go to Chibolia, find out what's ticking there, what's happening there. Listen, go on social media, keep up with the trends. But most importantly, I think for a long-running show, is young, fresh blood. When I joined, I was, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I had ideas for days, and I had these experienced people sort of, taking what was usable and then sort of containing my enthusiasm to something a bit more realistic. And so it's very important when you're running a long-running show to constantly have new blood in the room, in the form of a researcher, in the form of sort of, we do these sessions, these feedback sessions with audience members, but we choose deliberately just the target market. Say if our show is targeted at 18 to 45-year-olds, we just randomly choose from different towns, different townships, and just, hold these sessions where we listen. We listen to the people who actually consume our product. And that's just really important, because as I get older, I'm not as in touch, like what's the latest TikTok trend? What's the latest way to pick up a girl? So I hang out with my son, my nephews, and through them, I'm able to get a glimpse into their world. And I hang out with much older people. And through them, I'm able to, get a glimpse into their world. And then when I get home, I take these two worlds and I have them speak to each other. And then what you see on the screen is something that you can relate to, something grounded in reality. And so that is what makes a long-running show. Social relevance, relatability, enthrallment, like Blood Sisters. It's quite, it's quite thrilling. So, relatability, you have to have a list for yourself and just go, okay, I've got 8 points on that list. Did I check off at least 5? If I've got 5, I'm happy.
So, you've got a long-standing show. I'm just wondering around, for example, you're going to do something shocking. You're going to kill off a character or, whatever it is. Do you feel like you have to tell at least one person that's not in the team, like, oh my gosh?
I will admit, when I first started out, because I was super excited, obviously, I was working with all these amazing actors that I'd only watched as a child on screen, and now I'm writing the words that come out of their mouths. That was super exciting. I felt very important, and there was a need for me to share. So I may have broken my confidentiality, little clauses here and there, but nothing major. But when you get used to it, you see the value in holding on to that certain revelations. Because, word gets around.
Especially
I tell you,
media, even worse, I'm sure.
I tell you, and I tell you to keep it a secret, and you tell someone to keep it a secret, and before you know it, everybody knows. So, no. These days, the last maybe 10 years, no. I'm not even tempted.
Yeah.
Even if the actor is my friend, I just won't tell them that their job is coming to an end.
Oh. Thinking, oh my gosh, just even hearing it, that's so heartbreaking. Okay.
It's part of the work, it's part of the job. It does come with a bit of its downside because some characters must die. But unfortunately, that just means, it's the end of somebody's career as far as that particular show is concerned.
Yeah.
And that's a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. On a lighter note, do you have a genre preference? Because I noticed like your earlier work was it's more serious, more, drama. And then I've seen like the more recent ones are, comedy, rom.
Yes, absolutely. And you're spot on. I'm more a dramatic writer than anything else. Preference to watch for myself is horror. I love the horror genre. Anything supernatural, anything horror, gruesome, grotesque. Love, love, love. I am not a fan of rom-com. I'm not a fan of rom-com because I think that it's difficult to write if you're not funny. I don't consider myself a funny person. But that said, when Corona hit and we lost so many loved ones and you got this realization or reminder that life is very short and it's not given, it's not granted for anybody. I just got this thing where I thought, I need to do something a little bit different. I've always been scared to venture into certain genres. And so I did do 2 rom-coms. I did Entangled and I did Makoti, and they were really good. It was quite an experience. And then of course, Blood Sisters is a thriller. I've never done thriller in my career, and it turned out to be the biggest of my career. So yet again, the universe is kind of saying, risks do pay off, calculated risks. I'm not saying anybody out there should just, quit their job and just like go out there and, start doing things, but do it in a way that does not leave you vulnerable and exposed.
Yeah. So let's go back to the horror part, because Omen is a supernatural show, and I was looking at it thinking, how do you start researching like witchcraft and things like that? I'll be like,
yeah. I mean, the idea behind Omen was, we've always demonized witchcraft, and I think the Western world has always also demonized sort of African practices. Witch doctor, voodoo. And if you look at it, these practices are actually not all dark as, the media and also parents and culture and as we have evolved would have you believe. So I've always had a keen interest in African sort of mythology and African gods, because I don't know how many people out there know it. Before Christianity, we had our own gods. We had our own practices. So I'm always one that's curious about what happened before the missionaries. Where has our true culture gone? So part of that true culture, for me anyway, is sort of these myths. And so omen was originally a vendor concept, because the vendor culture is very rich in, these kind of practices, and they still do it to this day. And it's all above board. It's not dark. It's just a belief of who they are and where they come from. And there's a story that I was told by a very good friend of mine about, I can't even remember the name of the river, but it's an actual attraction, that there is a drum, ngoma lungung, and that drum is beneath this lake. And what it was is that there was a god of this lake, and I don't know what these village people did. And he lashed out at them, and he drowned the cattle, and he drowned. And so it's like little things like that. I remember thinking, what if, over time, like witches were actually God's creation, and they were meant to help spread good. And like everything with mankind that we touch, because of our greed, we corrupt it. What if witchcraft was corrupted by man? That was my question. So born out of that what if was omen. Like, what if some people were scared of witches because witches were different? And to this day, we are scared of that which is not like ourselves, of other. We are scared, and we create these stories that make them a threat. So what if it started out that way? And what if some witches who were doing good for just the average human being like me and you decided, you know what, you're demonizing me, and here I am supposed to do good for you. I'm going to do it for myself. And so they start doing these things for themselves, and the more they focus on themselves, and as opposed to what God intended, the practice becomes darker and darker and darker. And so that's where, omen came from. But a lot of politics with that one, but yeah. We'll let it go at that.
I mean, I think, again, for me, one of, like you said, in terms of how our spiritual beliefs before Christianity were demonized, I think one of the things that South Africa is also pioneering, and even Western Africa, is just, showing that, yes, there are other spiritual beliefs, there are other spiritual practices than just Christianity. Yeah. So I do agree with that, though.
Why can't we put our culture up there on the global stage as much as, Muslims do, as much as, Buddhists do, as much as Christians do? I mean, we know all about these other religious, sectors and beliefs, but with ours, it's just kind of, I'm not saying people shouldn't be Christian or Muslim if they want to be, just because they're African, they shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying, as you do that, respect that other people's beliefs lie in the soil, lie in their lineage, lie in their culture. Why can't we all not just coexist without demonizing what we believe? That's just my question. I'm Christian myself, but I'm very tolerant, extremely tolerant of what other people believe. As long as you're not hurting anyone, I just feel like, why not?
At any one time, how many writing projects can you be working on?
Interesting question. You can have as many as you want. I think it just depends on the writer. For me personally, I feel if I'm head writing a show, I don't want to carry or take on too much more work because I want to, it's a very exhausting thing mentally to write. So I don't want to take on too much. I can, but my writing will be compromised. My contribution will be compromised. So I never head write more than 2 shows at the same time. Never. And if I'm doing a drama series, I always, if I'm doing a drama series and I have 2 head writing jobs, I'll drop one. That's the way I operate. But I know some people who will take as much as they can. If 10 come, they'll say yes to 10. And then their output is at 20% ability. And then you see it reflected on screen and you go, that's just dumb. I just wasted half an hour of my life that I will never get back watching that show. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, that's what's happening.
Okay, so we're going to dive into Blood Sisters because everybody, I think the question, I ask my friends, like, do you have a question for Zeli? And the number one question, my other friend put it really nicely, but I think for me, it was more around, how did you find yourself in Nollywood? When you watch it, it just feels so authentic, you know? So how did that come about?
So I always say the writing community, especially in Africa, is this big. This big, especially if you're good. Not that I'm saying I'm good, which I am.
Oh, you are good. You are good. We're going to give you...
I was fishing for a compliment.
No. We give people their roses whilst they're still here. You are good.
But on a serious note, the writing industry is very small, and if you're great at what you do, and you have certain awards to your name, it's very easy. I mean, I get calls from people that I've never met. Like even now in my inbox, as you can imagine, I have been at this game for a very long time, and I hardly ever do press work. I hardly ever do social media work. I will, like, every now and again. I think I have like a Facebook page where when I look cute, I'm feeling kind of cute. I'm like, ooh, this is a cute outfit. I'm going to post it. But that was always the extent of my sort of engagement. And when I met my husband, when I initially met him, and he realized all the work that I've done, and he watched a lot of it, and he was like, why are you not taking credit? Why are you not putting your name out there? And I was like, well, people are enjoying what I'm doing anyway. Do they need to know where it's coming from? Do they need to know me? And he's like, absolutely, So he is one of those kinds of people that made me see that exposure and putting myself out there, and social media actually does go hand in hand with what I do. But with Blood Sisters, it was literally actually Craig Fryman. So Craig and I, we have been working together for 13, 14 years across different projects. And he has been working with Ebony Life TV in Nollywood for maybe 5, 6 years now. He does some projects for them. He wrote Oloture. So when this opportunity came along, he was just like, look, there is an opportunity with, Ebony Life TV. They need to come up with something, big, something that the African market has not seen yet or ever. Like, we need to do something quite ambitious. So he introduced me to Mo Abudu, and we had a few meetings with Mo Abudu, and, Blood Sisters was born. And it was just like, you had to be a fly on the wall in those Zoom sessions. We just kind of were like going for it, and just like, that's too small. That's too small. You gotta go bigger, bigger, bolder, better. And yeah, so I love the fact that when you have such an incredible working relationship with a fellow writer and they go away and they hear of an opportunity that they think this is something that Zeli can do. It's, they want something about women. They want something that resonates, something that African women will connect to, will understand, relate to. And I'm like, what is the biggest talking point at this moment? Domestic violence. But you don't want to preach. You want to send the message across, but in the most enthralling way possible. So yeah. So that's pretty much how come I traveled to Nigeria without hopping on a plane. It was via a guy called Craig Primond, a very dear friend of mine. And also, he was story editor when I was head writer at Rhythm City.
So first of all, we're going to give a big shout out to Jason, your husband, for responding to my email. Otherwise, you would not be here. So thank you, Jason.
No, he's fantastic like that. He's fantastic. And I'm seeing the value of what he's saying. I'm learning. Yeah. Never too old to learn.
No. Now, I don't want to give spoilers for people who haven't watched it, but obviously, guys, go and watch Blood Sisters. It's amazing. I'll just say one thing. I think for me, the first 5 minutes, I don't know if it's the first 5-10 minutes, it's just like where it grips you. And when she came out and danced for her wedding, I was finished. I was like, guys, this is insane. This is insanity. That's the part that got
the very definition.
How did this happen?
Oh yeah. No, Blood Sisters was a trip. It was a trip with a message.
Yeah.
It was an absolute trip. And it was, one day I, will tell you of, my process when I was writing Blood Sisters. I think, to a certain degree, it really helps. I suffer from lupus, which is an autoimmune condition. So when I was writing Blood Sisters, half of the time I was laid up in a hospital bed. So it was really like me and my doctor fighting. And and now he rings me up. It's like, oh my God, I'm glad you didn't listen to me. I'm glad you wrote it. That was so good. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you around sex scenes in shows, movies, whatever. I think, with this particular show, and I've seen like in Savage Beauty, I think the African continent or content is getting more bolder and braver with, the types of, or the depth, I would say, of sex scenes. But I just wanted to know what your thoughts are around that.
I think it's time that we stop pretending to be these holier than thou continent when it comes to sex. I think it's time we took away the sort of stigma and shame attached to sexuality and, enjoying one's sexuality. When you look at Africa and we preach, at least in Zambia, there's a lot of preaching around, we're a Christian nation. And I'm like, okay, that may be true, but we're also a nation of a lot of side chicks. We're also a nation of a lot of, sexually active people, whether, in the correct form, which is, consensual, over 18, or young, underage, clueless kids out there, teens, preteens, whatever. It's happening. It's happening. Can we stop pretending it isn't? My only thing about sex in film, sex on the screen, is that it shouldn't be gratuitous. Sex for the sake of sex. I don't subscribe to that. But if you look at Blood Sisters and where the sex really occurs, it's between two particular people. And that is their love language. Those two. Anything and everybody knows that couple that is just always at it. And for me, the idea of these two just, yeah. I'm like, this is their love language. This is what they do. This is what they enjoy. They enjoy each other's bodies. They're very horrible people, sure. But they also enjoy this physical connection as husband and wife. So why, if you will notice, there was no sex between, Kola and Sarah. But there is between these particular two, and that was a point. That was a point. And in terms of nudity, you will see there was a reason for the nudity. It was to showcase when you go into these places of like rehab, how they strip away your dignity. Exactly. So it wasn't pointless. If you were watching Blood Sisters and you were paying attention to the story, you would understand there was lots of meaning and thought behind each scene that we chose to keep. So it wasn't just for the sake of, we want to see breasts and we want to see bumps. No, it's the idea of you're going to this place, you've left your own house, your own bedroom, and now you suddenly have to shower with, 20 other people that you don't know. And then you have them judging you because you come from a family of wealth. You're already hated. So imagine being looked at naked, completely naked and vulnerable by people who you know for a fact don't like you at all. So it's things like that. And when you see I've been asked by a lot of Zambians about the kiss for mother and son, like on the lips. It happens twice, and there's a reason. There's also a reason for that kiss, and I can't explain it without giving away anything. So I don't want to spoil it, but there's a reason. If you look at Kola's mom's relationship with his dad, or lack thereof, then you understand. And if you look at, how Kola treats women and where that came from and who turned a blind eye to it, it's actually the two people, they suffer from two syndromes that are a female version of it and a male version of it. And it always occurs between mother and son. So it is an actual existing condition between the two. And in Africa, we never really talk about it.
What did you call that syndrome? Because when I was talking to my friends, I was like, guys, why is it okay to raise a demon and then put him, unleash him on the world? Like, I don't understand.
So Kola has Oedipus syndrome. So he suffers from Oedipus syndrome, and his mom suffers from Jocasta syndrome, which is a sort of female version of Oedipus syndrome. So yeah, so it talks about sort of Jocasta is kind of, it's a non-sexual obsession with the male child. And it usually occurs in women whose child is a love child, and then the father of that child is normally not in the picture, and so they transfer that love to that child, to that boy child. And then Oedipus syndrome is something that, according to, Freud, Sigmund Freud, it's something that young boys develop at a very young age. The first woman that they find themselves physically attracted to is always the mother, and they learn to suppress, the sort of sexual urge that comes with it. And I'm saying this, I'm trying to be very sanitary how I say all of these things. But, like in Zambia, you would find, and I always used to hear my friends say this, like, he must just go and marry his mom. And they don't even know that subconsciously they've hit the nail on the head. A lot of us grow out of it, but some of us stay stuck in that cycle. So Kola and his mom, that little bit, that's what it was. And in African culture, we don't recognize it. We just feel like, ooh, it's weird. Like, he's so obsessed with his mom and she's so obsessed with him. I think she wants to marry him. It's little things like that later, if you can research, you kind of start to understand, like, oh, it's like mental health. No funda, anafunda, anavula, enzotava mrods, chintapo, nimfuiti.
On top of it, nimfuiti, which is okay.
Nimfuiti, anavula. Like I see all these videos on Facebook of like, witch caught naked outside. I'm like, this person is probably having a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
There's no witchcraft here. So it's the same. It's the same sort of, we need to start looking at these mental health issues a bit more, as well as, an African continent, because I think that is a syndrome of it on its own in Africa. We are very clueless.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So moving on from Blood Sisters, I think my final thing that I really liked was around Ngozi, because I think that one is around road safety, right?
Yes.
And for me, I feel like storytellers, and maybe even just Zambian storytellers, are so focused, or not really, okay, they're not even storytellers. It's kind of like, when you're trying to put out something and it's just, don't do it, it's
preachy.
It's like, but I love that you use the story to bring that message across and say, listen, there's so many repercussions from
one choice can affect so many other people.
Yeah, and I think for what that was telling me was like, we can really control the narrative and the way that we're trying to educate our population with story. But people don't get that. When you're telling them, tell a story, they're just like, no, I'm going to sell my product like this. I'm just going to be posting the picture over and over again. Oh.
And that doesn't work. Like, even in real life, who wants to be preached at? Not me. Not me. A good story will always deliver a message. You don't have to preach. You don't have to be on the nose. Not that I want to go back to Blood Sisters, but like if you look at Blood Sisters, it was talking about something very important. But we were not saying, oh my God, this is domestic violence. This is, substance abuse, and there's a reason why people abuse substances. They don't just wake up and abuse substances. No, we didn't do that. We dramatized it. We made it, relatable. Because you don't necessarily have to have, the backdrop of Tumaini to turn to drugs and alcohol, but you understand her need to forget traumatic events. You understand her need to escape from a crazy dysfunctional family. You may not be from that level of dysfunction, but you understand that a family can be toxic.
Obviously, to do such productions and, create amazing stories like this, then there has to be some funding and advertisers and things like that. And I was just wondering, like, does it feel awkward to have to write in, those...
I hate it. Product placement. I hate it.
Yeah, product placement. Yeah, thank you.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Especially on telenovelas and soapies. You get that all the time. And it's necessary because that's, what keeps the show going.
Yeah. But so what's your advice for making it feel natural? Because, I watch different shows and I'm just like, so you're just telling me that it's like, I can so see like, okay, this is just, but then the others that feel a bit more natural, you're like, oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
I always try by all means, if there's a product that needs to be advertised, I always try by all means to weave it into story. Make it part of the story, not just a prop. Like, for example, if there is a hotel, say, for instance, in Durban that wants to advertise, I will make it a part of the story that, say, for instance, a young character is being seduced by, I don't know if you were watching Rhythm City or anything like that. We had Mapula who was very, above board, very responsible. She was taking care of her siblings and she was going to school and she had a bright future ahead of her, but life was really tough. And at some point, as every one of us does, you get tired and you get despondent because you're doing all these correct things and you're not seeing the rewards. Life keeps knocking you down. So we had some hotel in Durban that wanted advertising. And I thought, well, if we're going to do that, we could use it as part of the story that the blesser is enticing her with a trip to Durban. She's never been on a flight. She's never slept in a hotel. And he's giving her all of this money suddenly that she's never seen before. She's wearing bone straight 30 inches and ordering room service. So that is part of the story. And it's quite subtle. The way it slides in. And the person watching is like going, oh, but this is a nice hotel. Even without a blesser, I wouldn't mind going there. So try to, as a creative, try to always organically make the product a part of the story rather than making the story background and, foregrounding the product. That's just off. Because even without saying anything sometimes, if, for instance, you're advertising washing powder, your character's doing stuff and they're just there. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. It speaks for itself. Well, but I hate product placement. Hate it. Pain of mine.
Necessity. Yeah.
Hate it.
What are your, let's say, top 3 tips for aspiring writers on the continent?
Top 3 is write every day. Write every single day, even if it's 30 words. Write every single day. The second thing I would say is join a community of like-minded people. Join a community of like-minded people because this is a very lonely job. It may seem glamorous from the outside, but it's a very lonely job. And before you make it, it can feel like it's pointless. And it can feel very difficult. So having people that know and understand what you're going through is very important for your mental well-being. And secondly, don't wait for opportunity. Chase it. Or is that the third one? Chase it. By Jove, it's so amazing today how easy it is to reach people in comparison to when I started. These days, people are on Instagram. You can DM them. People are on, other social, exactly. It works. It works. People have got, if they don't respond to you in their DMs, people have got pages. And if you comment on their page or do something to attract their attention on their page, you're most likely to be noticed. So don't wait for opportunity. That just is not going to happen. Chase the opportunity.
So Zeli, what is your next big dream that you are looking to smash?
Well, I'm hoping for, this is going to sound so cheesy, but I would love to have an opportunity to work in Zambia. It sounds like, but it's true. I really, really would love to do something in Zambia. I would love to give back in some form. I really would. I feel like, I've worked so hard in South Africa, and South Africa embraced me, and I am one of them. I really feel that way. And I have done this monumental thing with Nigeria, and it just feels a little bit off that I haven't done anything at all in Zambia. So that would be my next big thing. And that is something that I am working towards, whether it's getting Zambian actors into one of my projects, or whether it's, helping to shape the next batch of Zambian creatives. I hope both. But that's my next big dream. But if you're asking for work that is already in the pipeline, yes, there is work in the pipeline. And I can only hope that it does as well as, Blood Sisters, if not better.
Better. But I love that you've put it out in the universe. So I'm sure it's going to definitely come back to you to do the work in Zambia. Okay, Zeli, please tell the audience, how do they find you? Obviously, guys, go and watch Blood Sisters. So let's keep celebrating. But how do people get in contact with you or just see what you're doing?
Yeah. So my amazing husband started a Facebook page for me, and it's Zelipa Zulu on Facebook. It's Zelipa Zulu, I think. Yeah, Zelipa Zulu screenwriter. I think that's what it is. I'm also on Instagram. I think that's Zeli _Oz or I have to check. I am pathetic. Yes, it's Zeli _Oz. So that's, Zeli _Oz on Instagram. It's Zelipa Zulu on Facebook. And I think it's Zeli _Oz on Twitter. But I think the most important place that you can find me, the most meaningful place that you can find me, is on the Facebook page, which I, will be using to talk about the art of screenwriting, which I'll be using to help screenwriters who are just beginning, and screenwriters who have actually got a project that is ready, in guiding them on what the next step is and possibly putting them in touch with the right producers. So I think that would be your best bet if you are just looking to hone your skills, would be find me on my page. We'll be doing a sort of weekly hour session just talking about, screenwriting in a very practical sense to help people move their projects ahead. So, and then Instagram as well, which I will be doing live sessions of a similar nature. Yeah.
That is good to know. Thank you for sharing that. That's very generous of you.
Yeah, I think we need a bit more writers out there in the world, a few more creatives. Yeah. Right. Especially from Zambia. We just need to, I don't know, we just need to get on the map somehow, you know? I just feel a little bit frustrated that there's nothing forthcoming. Well, you know, Sampa did the most amazing thing with her soundtrack of Ozark, like, and performing at Coachella.
Yeah.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I just feel like we can have more of those achievements if we, the few that have been fortunate enough to have those successes, are actually giving and sharing of that success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love that it's being spearheaded by women. I must say that.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
yes.
Zeli.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly. It's just written in the stars. It's our time.
Yeah.
And there has never been a better time to be Black, to be woman, to be in the creative industry. There's just never been a greater time than right now.
Yeah.
So let's do this thing.
Let's do it. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed this session. It has been very
likewise.
And thank you for being so giving.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for affording me this opportunity on, you know, your podium. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate, you know, what you're trying to do in shining a spotlight on women who, you know, are trying to make strides in all aspects and all manner of industry. So thank you.
So you thought I was just going to talk about blood sisters. I'm a professional, I beg, please. I honestly think that in my former lives, I was a journalist, lawyer, Indian. Okay. Anyway, sis, isn't she amazing? Oh, goodness. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm a writer as well. So I was very selfish. I went in there for a masterclass. But I'm sure you also picked up some things as well, ne? So just calm down. So here is my top takeaway. Now, parents, I'm talking to you. Parents, we really have to stop this thing of forcing children that are gifted in trades or the arts to go get a university degree as a backup. And then they never use it. In Africa, we have been told that if you're a plumber, a carpenter, a singer, an actor, a writer, a hairdresser, then you are just not important. You know, your job is not important. Excuse me. We need these things every day. Okay? You turn to the arts when you need to get through the lowest of moments. You turn to the arts to experience so much joy. When you jump into your car at the end of the day, you turn on music. When you get home, you dive into your favorite series or a book and you've been thinking about it all day, okay? Listen, we were just reading Flomu the Wife. People almost got fired at work, okay? And yet, you don't give respect to these people. Not everyone can be a lawyer. How? Not everyone can be a lawyer, doctor, engineer. We all have our callings and each one is just as valuable as the next. You know, someone was recently telling me how in Australia, their tertiary education is divided into trades and then specialties, okay? So the people who choose trades, they get paid a lot of money. I mean, when will society stop needing a hairdresser, plumber, electrician, carpenter? These are our everyday necessities. We really need to change the way we view arts and trades on our continent. I think what you should be doing as a parent is supplementing your child's talent with short courses like business, ICT, project management, you know, additional skills that they can use to take their craft to the next level. If little Johnny says he is a writer, let him write. He could be an author traveling the world talking about his collection of work. If sweet Jerita has a talent for doing hair, don't beat her. Just let her do the hair. By 25 years old, she could own a chain of hair salons across the country if you support her. Now, at Africana Women, we give our guests their roses right now. So please go and find Zeli on Facebook and on Instagram at Zelipa Zulu and tell her you heard her on the Africana Woman podcast. In fact, take a screenshot of this episode, post it on your stories and tag us. We want to keep the conversation going. By the way, I started a writing challenge to encourage myself to get into the habit of writing every day. And you can go check it out on the Africana Woman blog. If you want to join me on this challenge, use the hashtag 30 days writing. It's been fun. Now, sis, I remember when I was starting the Africana Woman podcast, I was lost. I was a lost ducky. No equipment, no systems, no training in editing. Like, it was just crazy. But 2 years down the line, I am so proud of how far the podcast has come. And the mission of Africana Woman has always been to tell more African women's stories. Therefore, we are helping you start and maintain your podcast. If you have a burning idea and are interested in launching a podcast, but you don't even know where to start, that's okay. Contact us at africanawoman@gmail.com. We got you, okay? Your story is important. Now, my playground is Instagram. Find me at Chulu by Design. Tag me, tell your friends about the Africana Woman podcast, and again, leave a review, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that helps us spread the word about this show to more African sisters out there. So talk to you soon. This has been a production of Africana Woman Media.